opportunity to loot public funds. Some have praised it. Join Seun Okinbaloye as he hosts seasoned guests on this conversation on the MyCom podcast today.
The 60% of Us series. In this edition of the Mike On Podcast.
Are the palliatives rolling in already? On Thursday, the 13th of July 2023, the Senate President Godswill Akpabio read President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's letter on the government's intention to roll out 8,000 naira each to 12 million poor households and low-income earners for the first 6 months. This, according to the letter, is a program expected to stimulate economic activities in the informal sector and improve nutrition, health, education, and human capital development for beneficiaries' households. Questions then begin to spring up. How sustainable is a policy of giving 8,000 naira each to 12 million poor households for 6 months in a country where by 2022, the National Bureau of Statistics stated that 133 million Nigerians were multidimensionally poor, statistically surpassing the World Bank's projection? After the 6 months, what is next for poor Nigerians? The palliative is for poor households. Relative to the impact of subsidy removal as a result of current harsh economic situation, how can this amount of money stem the realities of the poor in this economy? How successful are previous social intervention programs? With particular reference to the immediate past administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. The president's request letter has elicited mixed reactions from opinion makers and citizens in general. Some have kicked against it and said it is an avenue to create opportunity to loot public funds. Some have praised it. Join Seun Okinbaloye as he hosts seasoned guests on this conversation on the MyCom podcast today.
The 60% of Us series.
Hello and welcome to MyCon Podcast. I am Alan Adejo, standing in for Seun Okinbaloye, who will be joining us in a bit. This podcast focuses on issues affecting all Nigerians, but pays special and careful attention to how the issues raised affect young Nigerians, wherever they are. It is also a platform where more young people get to bear their minds on topical issues here. Here, everyone has a say. Now, as a part of his plans to ease the suffering of the downtrodden in the aftermath of fuel subsidy removal, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led federal government intends to transfer the sum of 8,000 naira monthly to 12 million poor and low-income households for 6 months. Do you think your household falls in the category? How will the government determine these families? How will this money be disbursed? From that round of questions to another set of crucial questions. What are the prices of the foodstuff? Basic human needs. Will 8K suffice in a Tinubu economy? Let's bring this home and make the conversation more realistic. About 133 million Nigerians live in poverty. That is 63% of the entire population put in context. The World Bank says 4 out of 10 Nigerians live in poverty. Well, there is also an argument that 8,000 naira, which is about $10, or any of such interventions like we've seen in the past, may seem like chicken change to a class of people. But those who have been tagged the poorest of the poor, will find such palliative very helpful. Now let's go into the conversation. The good part of the podcast is that we always have the benefit of people sharing real stories and experiences to help us dissect each topic. But first, let me introduce to my guests. So today on the podcast, we have the AAC presidential candidate live in the studio with us, the person of Mr. Showore. So, okay, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show. And on the Zoom, we have a guest who is an economic analyst, Mr. Shegun Onigbinde. Mr. Shegun Onigbinde is on the Zoom with us. You're welcome, please. All right. Well, let's get quickly into today's topic. Mr. Showore, you are in the country, and we understand that the president just transmitted a letter to the National Assembly, which was read on Thursday, on the intention of his administration to roll out 8,000 naira each monthly to poor households and low-income earners. What's your take on this? Because we have a situation where a part of the country, some persons are against this policy and some are for this policy. Do you think it is a sustainable thing? It's a sustainable policy, 8,000 naira. So what's your take on this? Can we have your take?
I think you must first and foremost understand the meaning of palliative. Palliative is actually a medical terminology for relieving pain without solving the cause of your problem. In fact, if you go further, what they call palliative care in medical terminology is a kind of medical care that is meant for end of life. Where they're just pouring painkillers while they await you to die. And I think that's what basically these guys are doing. I'm going to define it so that people understand that when they use adjectives, they know what they're saying. They don't want to solve the problem of poverty in Nigeria, because otherwise you remove subsidy and you claim that upon removing subsidy there will be a range of opportunities that will make the economy start to boom. But then fundamentally you are reintroducing subsidy. Are you getting my point? Because at the end of the day, you are again subsidizing people, subsidizing lifestyles. You are helping to subsidize poverty. And this is why we to engage a lot with Nigerians. Some Nigerians, not all of them, in use of palliative care, except you have admitted that everybody's going to die at the end of the day anyway. So let's just give them a little bit. But then when you dive deeper into the palliative they are introducing as well, you can imagine who are getting the largest chunk of the meat. It's still the people who don't need palliative. The National Assembly is taking 70 billion naira for themselves. Judges have been giving some. The rest of Nigerians, about 130 million of them, you are only targeting 12 million households. And if you divide, by households, Nigeria basically are talking about the mother, the father, and 2 kids. So what that gives is that each member of the household will get 53 naira. I've never seen anywhere in Nigeria where you can buy anything with 53 naira. Not a piece of toilet paper could be purchased with that. So maybe they're right. This is palliative care on your way to the end.
All right, sir. Um, yes, thank you so much for the submission. We want to bring in the anchor, Sean Okimbalong, is on Twitter Spaces, where he comes in to stir the conversation on Twitter Spaces.
All right, thank you so much, Alan, and welcome. Interesting, Alan. Thank you so much for standing in. I was held up by postponement of my flight severally from Lagos to Abuja. But thank goodness that we have this kind of platform. Can Mr. Shora and Mr. Onigbede hear me?
I can hear you well.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Mr. Shora, how are you? You're one of those who have said that we needed palliative, Mr. Shora. Isn't the palliative that some of you have clamored for, that President Tinubu says will come in the way of Nigerians?
Maybe you're talking about another show, right? Not me. I've never advocated for palliatives. Never. I've always advocated for sustainable economic system that can eradicate poverty and put this nation's economy on a strong footing. Never, I've never advocated for palliatives because I know the meaning of palliatives or palliative. So, and I've defined it before you came on.
But Mr. Shora, but you know that there are a lot of those who criticized President Tinubu when he made that announcement that, look, the subsidy is gone. There are those who believe that you cannot remove the subsidy if you do not make adequate plans. Now, it does look like the man is rolling out his plan. Do you really have a problem with palliative? And if you have a problem with palliative, what do you think you could have done differently?
My position from the beginning was that they could have sustained subsidy, and because subsidy actually do help businesses to grow or at least sustain themselves and keeps a lot of people employed. When you increase the cost of production by removing subsidy, people lose their jobs, they lose their means of livelihood. You put in palliatives that first will last for 6 months, and at the end of the day, you can't even define where the 12 million households will be and who will benefit from it. We now know that the large chunk of it will go to political operatives in the country that are already overfed, over subsidized, and overprotected. So this is not new. I want to tell you, maybe you don't know, but we are all part and parcel of the media network. Buhari had palliatives too. There were people who were getting paid 5,000 naira since 2015 till now.
Interesting. Let me bring in Mr. Onigbede. You are an economic expert. There are those who think there should be cushion to the effect of the removal of subsidy. There are those who believe that there must be a soft landing for the poor, for the Nigerian people. If you are removing subsidy, which is supposed to help the poor or help pay what the real cost of toll is. In this sense, what were the kind of cushion that we were expecting? Was it the kind of cushion that some of you experts have analyzed that is coming? Or what exactly is your view on the plan of government?
Thank you very much. I also didn't have a lot of conviction about removal of fuel subsidy for a long time. But over time, I agreed that the corruption there, the voluminous, the exaggerated output. The NPC numbers weren't making sense to anybody. But by the time we are mixed up with the fact that we are borrowing, we're using debt, we're using excess crude account, we're taking from every angle we can find in the name of fuel subsidy. And I put that in the name of fuel subsidy because I also know that those numbers were highly exaggerated or highly inflated. My position was always that there are some systemic things you need to do before you do certain things. So first, and I remember it was on Channel Steve, I said, first, and the first answers you need to figure out is inflation, food inflation. How do you tackle food inflation? Because if you take, if people are able to eat at a decent price, then definitely you are certain that to some extent they will be able to endure whatever pain that will come from the removal of fuel subsidy. So we have not been able to have an holistic plan. So that the president he released a plan for food security, which I mean, I still have some lot of misgivings about that, but it also means that they're thinking that we can't really do this change. We can't really provide any form of palliative or support to any Nigerians without not tackling food inflation. So that's my first problem. The second thing I also mentioned is that the political class must act in solidarity with the people. Acting in solidarity with the people means that you show that you feel the pain of the people. It's not as if you continue your own luxurious life. Either you are trying to buy 40 vehicles, either the Speaker of the House is still moving around in private jets. You know, you're not trying to, there's no, people begin to see public service from a position of service. You know, Nigeria is not rich enough for the luxurious life of its leaders. So those are the kind of things that we need to put forward first. Then after you've done that, you now have to understand public transport systems. Those are the things that take a lot of money from Nigeria. How do you provide subsidized public transport systems? And that's why I was always clear about my position that subsidy needed to go, but the speed and the haste that subsidy was removed means that government will do a lot of catch up, and it's really not just helpful. A lot of these things could have been well thought out. For the short term, I'm thinking around how do we also even have a proper digital register of Nigerians, because you're going to give out 500 billion naira to, I mean, we say we have a register that we been for social register. Those, I still don't feel okay that that's a proper system. A proper system means that every single Nigerian is on a single platform, and you can really go there and figure out who needs, because of income levels. You can find out who actually needs this palliative, which families need this palliative. Not just walk into a village and randomly pick 5 or 6 people and say, these are the poorest of the poor. What happens to the urban poor? What happens to the semi-urban poor? Do they get calculated or counted among in those situations? So those are the things for me. We have not applied an holistic framework to all of these things. We just want to keep doing ad hoc stuff, thinking it's going to add up at the end of the day. And you will see, by the time this whole palliative distribution thing happens, you know, it will still come with a whole lot of stories that who gets this 8,000 naira. Number one, the 8,000 naira payment is very offensive. It means that a whole household gets 48,000 naira, you know, within a period of 6 months. If you have an household of 5 people, you know, that means you're giving just a person within the household 10,000 naira over a 6-month period. What exactly is the meaning of that? You know, that is clearly an abuse. And that doesn't even make sense in any way. So if the government does not have the capacity to do palliative, let them not do it. Let's look for systemic issues.
Let me, apologies, let me, the increment in the price and the jack in the price of petrol is about 160 or 150 something percent. So if you bought fuel about 2 months ago, what you are paying now is about 150% more than what you are paying. And if you calculate the 8,000 in terms of naira and kobo, does it meet up with the percentage? Is it commensurate? Because if you are, for example, if I take away 50 naira out of the 100 naira that I give you, and if I'm giving you palliative to cushion the effect of the 15 I've taken away, I must be able to give you something that is commensurate. I mean, I don't know if my mathematics or my economics is making sense, Joe.
You are making sense. You're making sense because, and that's why, you know, that said, we didn't need to rush this. We have running fuel subsidy for 14 years. So if we waited 3 more months to think through some of these solutions, it could have been much better. Minimum wage is the situation. For example, what should be the minimum wage of the public sector, which also I think this private sector will take a little bit of cue from. You know, we have not been able to resolve that. The Labour have asked for around 200,000. There are negotiations still going on, but already the pain has started. I mean, you people are already in pain and they're still within the same wage bracket, previous wage bracket. And that's why even when we talk about fuel subsidy, it's good we remove it from the inefficiencies. Yes. But if we are really going to apply support and actually be fair to Nigerian workers. You're actually copying from one side of the book to another side of the book, which means whatever money you feel that you're only going to use that to meet the lingering needs of the Nigerian workers. So definitely federal government has a personnel cost of around 4 trillion naira. It means that you're possibly going to be at a personnel cost of close to around 5 to 6 trillion. You want to really give support and ameliorate this suffering. So for me, I believe that the whole subsidy removal thing is not well thought out. It seems that there's a rush to it. It seems that maybe Providence made it happen. But the question is that this has happened now. It looks like we're not going to move backwards again. But how are you going to move in haste? Because whatever you are offering with the data, if you have a Nigeria of 200 million people in the database today, maybe the working class in that database would be 120 million. Let's just even assume. We first take out people that are informal working class. Those ones maybe they don't need that 8,000 naira. You take out the people that are public sector workers at state, federal, and local government level. You take those ones out. You can easily triangulate with some level of BVN to know how much Nigerians with this size of amount of money in their account, they might not need those palliatives, so that you quietly start, you bring yourself to a matrix or to the size of the Nigerians that truly need the palliative. In that situation, you build a social contract. You incentivize Nigerians even being able to file taxes, even if they file 20,000 naira as revenue of their income per year. In the US, even if you earn $15,000 or $20,000, it is your best interest to file taxes, because if government wants to give palliative tomorrow or any form of economic support, it is going to be based on your taxable income that you filed with proper economics, a proper digital register. But we have failed to actually do that well.
I'm going to come back to you, Sean, because tonight, one of the reasons we thought that it was necessary for us to bring Sean Onigbinde was that we need to know. Nigeria Bureau of Statistics will tell us that we have almost 45 million households in Nigeria. We need to make sense of how many of these households will benefit. Now, Kano State, for example, is already, the governor is already raising eyebrow. The government of the Kano State is already raising eyebrow, thinking that we cannot, Lagos might be getting more, than Kano. There's already, that politics is already playing out. How many people who are at more households and they buy with it, and you make sense for us, what are the real costs of the commodities? Now, how do they want to deploy or disburse this money? Is it through the banking? How many of these poor families are banking? How many of them will get this money? If they are the poorest of the poor, are there banks? Do they have bank accounts? Are there banks in those rural communities? I'm coming back to you. But let's look at one for a moment, the politics of this money. And I know that Sahara Reporters published something about that. So with the hearing, but I need to also get confirmation on how these monies are going to be disbursed. We understand that some part of it will go to the judiciary, some part will go to this, some part will go to that. Give us a sense of what you hear or what you know about the breakdown of these 500 billion. And don't forget there is an 800 million naira loan, which these monies is going to come from. There is the 500 billion naira, which also is part of this cushioning effect that the government is going to take out of the 2022 budget and supplementary budget. Give us a sense on what you make, because I've seen you've made comments about how this money is going to be disbursed and the breakdown of these monies. Give us an understanding.
I don't know how they're going to disburse the money. I'm not part of the APC government, and I don't want to create impression that I know how money will be disbursed, based on their own methodologies. But what I know is that they are not. All this is a facade. This is all again an attempt by the government to create impression that, well, we took subsidy from petroleum, petrol or gasoline, as we call it, because at the end of the day, when they are done with the highest levels of the distribution chain, it will go to party leaders to nominate people. who will get paid, and the party leaders themselves. So you are going to see, and I'm not exaggerating, you're going to see more poor people after the 500 billion is gone down. But also in Abuja and Lagos and other places, you are going to see a lot of brand new vehicles, SUVs bought by party leaders from palliative money. So this is nothing new. Under Jonathan, they had their own palliative. Buhari had all kinds of, the humanitarian affairs woman, what she was doing with money in those days. And I don't know why people are, I feel terrible that I'm sitting here discussing something that doesn't really make sense to me as a person. This is just another way of just like fooling people that, the government care about you. We are providing palliatives. And when you look at, the first idea of these palliatives, it's not only that it's very, very shady, it is that it's just their own way of doing things, but they've given us something to chew. And here we are spending all our, at the end of the day, when they are done with the palliatives, maybe 2 months into the palliatives distribution, you discover that everything is gone. And we'll be wondering why in the first place we even believed them or that they had any intention to give to the poor. One thing I want to say before you go back to Sheon is that I disagree that there's no data. There's plenty of data in this country. In fact, Nigeria is one of the countries that engages in what I call data abuse, because everybody collects your data. And we must move to the era of data protection, data analysis, and proper, curation of data. Maybe that's what we are looking for. Because if you look at it, I know about 7 agencies that collect biometric data in this country. The immigration does, banks collect your BVN, INEC collects, the driver's license people collect, your universities even collect. Everybody collects data in this country. The question is, what are we doing with plenty of data? Because you can tell, for instance, from data collected by the NDIC, this is the insurance body that covers deposits, there are 123 million Nigerians that have bank accounts. Those are bankable Nigerians. And out of that, only about 0.7% of that population have up to 500,000 naira in their account. That's about 700,000, maybe about 1 million out of 123. That's where to start with. So if people don't have up to 500,000 naira in their account, you want to give them palliatives, you have to look at that number. So we are looking at about over 120 million people that are deserving of this kind of palliative protection. But also, we cannot be doing palliative. The issue of poverty in the country cannot be solved by palliative. This is just like carrying whatever is left and throwing it into the Atlantic Ocean. There has to be well-designed processes, like social security, an employment process, an infrastructural development process that will put money back in the pocket of it. That's how it is done everywhere. Anytime there is some kind of recession in America, America spends more on America. Anytime there is recession and economic problem in Nigeria, people take out money and push it out of the system, or they'll say there's too much money in circulation. I don't understand where this kind of economic brains come from. Maybe Sheon knows them. I mean, I'm talking about Sheon Nigbinde because you call him an economist. Maybe they're his friends. But nothing makes sense around here when it comes to designing a long-lasting solution towards, fighting poverty. And that's the problem. It's not just this figuratively fickle intervention. So each time there is a problem, you come and give palliatives. And the last time we saw palliatives in this country, they were stacked up in warehouses by politicians. Even after there was a massive riot and attack on those warehouses, politicians still package the palliatives, use it for their birthdays, use it for politics. I don't know why we are discussing palliatives. This is not the solution to the problem of poverty in Nigeria. So, and again, as I said, when you weren't here, if you really hate, subsidy, why are you doing another subsidy? Because palliative care is subsidy too.
All right. So, Mr. Showore, it's obvious you are not in for the palliative.
No, I'm not.
Because you said it's a medical term. It's a medical term, like you said, and you are against it.
Yeah.
Now, you contested in the just concluded presidential election.
Yeah.
If you were the president, in very strategic terms, pointedly. Now, what would you have done differently from what the president is about doing? What would you have done differently? Can you tell us?
First, I wouldn't have removed subsidy, but I would have cleaned up the subsidy regime. Let's take out the thieves who make.
You think you have the capacity? Do you have measures that you think you can employ to ensure that you take out these thieves?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell us some of these measures?
No, that even as a private individual, I fight thieves. Just using digital tools, and I've done it very well in the last, as a publisher of Sahara Reporters, and it works. But if I'm president, then I have all the tools, including shaming, arrest, prosecution, mitigation, all those tools are there that the president can invoke, or the leaders of the country can invoke. If we're talking about what comes in and what goes out in terms of even petrol, now they're saying that we've been reduced to 40 million gallons per day, or is it liters per day? It used to be 60, 70 million. So how did it happen? It is not because you remove subsidy. No. It is because in the first place, nobody was consuming 60 million. So the thieves, are taking a break because they are watching maybe body language, as they used to call it. And when all of this is done, they will resume doing what they're doing, because you see, as long as you don't have control over your naira, you can't control how much petrol will cost. Are you getting my point? And since Tinubu came, naira moved from 600 naira to $1. Now it's 803 as of yesterday. So those are the things that control what would determine the prices of goods and services in the market, because we don't produce petrol, we export them. I would also by now will be asking people who took money to fix the refinery. They told us that by May, 2 refineries will be back on stream. What happened? As president, you will produce that money, or you make the refineries work. So you make all the 4 refineries work because we own them, and we are not fixing them, but we are helping a guy in Lagos to build his own refinery by contributing $2.7 billion to building his refinery. The moment you make refineries work, you provide employment. You understand? I would also, by now, I would have increased the minimum wage to a sizable amount of money.
Yeah.
And my minimum wage used to be 100,000, and then they used to mock me that it would cost inflation. My minimum wage proposal now is 250,000 for you to survive in this country. I'm serious.
All right.
Yes.
So now, I think the policies, your intended policies that you have mentioned, are on the long run. Of course,
it's not long run. I'm telling you short time. I'm telling you what I would have done if I was president since May 29. What I would have done by now.
You think between May to now,
yes,
is actually a time you can get these policies working, and Nigerians will say, "Oh, you have been able to work on the refineries."
If I was president of Nigeria, yes, you have nothing to talk about right now on radio. All of you will be busy just wondering how we're doing it, not to be trying to dissect palliatives. Because I won't come here to come and do palliative care. It's a care for people who are dying, not for people who want to live.
Sorry, before we go,
refineries of Port Harcourt. This is simple. Port Harcourt refinery was supposed to come on stream in May. We paid for it. We borrowed money, 2.something billion. Why are you not asking that where's the $800 million Buhari borrowed on the eve of his government? So, where is that money? Exactly. Have they disappeared? Of course, because we have 0 kilobytes of memory in this country. We are so quick to forget everything. We should not be discussing palliative when already before Buhari left, he had already borrowed on our behalf $800 million for palliative that's supposed to run till the end of the year. So Tinubu comes, he starts his own palliative. Is it an overlap of palliatives? There were supposed to be 2 refineries that would have been working. And you keep Mele, the NNPC guy there, and he has not been able to bring the refinery he said will work in at the end of May. And you keep him there as MD of the NNPC. He's supposed to be sharing jail cell with the CBN governor by now.
So now, so Mr. Shore, the point is this. I think the government, the president,
yes,
met poor Nigerians.
Where did they meet?
There were statistics. Yes, we had statistics that Nigerians were poor. These are the statistics of
There are
2022.
133 million Nigerians are officially poor, according to the government records.
Yes, in 2022.
Yes.
And you intend you
probably
said
more in 2023.
You said if you were the president now,
yes,
you would have been able to roll out these measures.
I would have rolled out a lot of measures that would have engaged students. I mean, the poor. I told you before in 2019 and 2023 in my election that I would have, upon arriving office, I would have turned Nigeria into a construction site. There'll be a lot of public works going on. People will be busy working, Probably Sheun too would have become a supervisor in a quarry, breaking stones. Just kidding, because I know you have your job cut out for you. But this is what serious people do when they come to power. They just not engage in, just frivolities. Oh, it's palliative again. Oh, let's fire some people. Clap for me, and then, you go and become the president of ECOWAS. Like, what is ECOWAS? That you need to be president of ECOWAS to work in Nigeria. So we're just like, it's deja vu again. We're going through the same motion, no movement. Circumlocution.
It's good to be back. Thanks so much, Alan.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm physically back here
yes.
With you. I mean, it's been a total mess sometimes trying to travel in Nigeria. They cancel flights without indiscriminately, and
because nobody's regulating the industry.
It's a total disaster.
Everything is a mess.
It's a total disaster, and just hoping that some people will just put their thinking caps and make things work. I mean, let something just work in this country that one can be happy about. Thanks, Mr. Showore and Showonigbinde. But we're looking at world government. If you are going to relieve the pain of the people, we need to critically analyze, because the ones that Nigeria is borrowing and the ones that are being taken out of the 2022 supplementary budget is still Nigeria's money. Yeah. Either you're going to pay it in the immediate or you're going to pay it later, because Mr. Falana was one person that was arguing on politics today with me on China's television, and his submission is that we cannot have palliative from the World Bank because it cannot be a loan. He said that it can only be a grant. But look, that deal has been sealed by the Buhari government. The Tinubu government has inherited it. They've taken it on board, and now they're thinking about how to share it. But before I go back to Mr. Onigbinde, because one of the issues that I need us to analyze is the mathematics, the sensibilities. If you are to share this money, is it going to be shared equitably? Because I don't think anybody has the power to stop what the federal government has decided now. They've decided how they will share it, the amount in which they will share it, the families that it will go to. If you and I shout from now to tomorrow, I'm not sure it will stop federal government from doing what they want to do. But the question is that how equitable is the process of sharing this money? Well, in the real sense, Mr. Showora, give us an understanding of what this has done for us. It's not the first time that we are giving these social safety net measures to Nigerians. Since the Buhari government, about the second year of the Buhari government, they've been giving billions of naira out every year, according to their plans. Has it worked? Is it something that we can do again?
Because these are not concrete measures. They are not substance at all. There's no substance attached to just doling out money to people. There's nothing they haven't done. And it didn't start with Buhari. It started with the military. When the military would remove fuel subsidy in those days, nowadays in the university, they would even bring vehicles to the university. Every university get 2 Toyota buses, and then 6 months after, the engine would have broken down, and that would be the end of it. But at that time, we had even bigger sources of money under Buhari. Babangida, for instance, they had $12 billion windfall from the Gulf oil war, and Gulf war. They quaffed it, they embezzled the money, and there was a record of the embezzlement. We just keep moving on without solving the problem. What I'm saying and what I keep saying is that you have to have long-lasting, institutionalized means of eradicating, poverty or assisting people in the form of unemployment grants and benefits. because I lived there and I had contributed
yeah,
to
America doled out about $2 trillion.
Exactly. So,
$1,200 to an adult, about
so when that
800
was
or 600
over,
to.
those are for special circumstances. But when you are over
So it's
with
not
them,
as if handouts are not good or they don't work in some
handouts
some other
can come if there are extraordinary circumstances, and there must be defined ways.
But does this fit into an extraordinary circumstance?
It doesn't. This because we don't. This is nothing. This has no.
If you look at the fact that the statistic from the NBS says the number of people who feed under $1 per day is about 90 million or 91 million.
Yeah.
Of the NBS, those that are extremely poor, and
let's look at the NBS.
Does that give you a sense?
No, yeah, it doesn't. So let's look at the NBS. Let's start from there. If you want to even give out handouts, what is required is $1 per day for the poorest, and how much is that? 800 naira per day.
As of today,
what does it take you in a month? That's about 30,000 naira, and that.
Is that in Jigawa, for example, that has the largest household number in Nigeria, is about almost 6 kids averagely per family, per household.
I understand that. It's not Jigawa, it's a Nigerian thing. My father has 20 kids. Yeah, and we're 16 of all entitled to the palliative, by the way, including me.
And you are probably going to share 8,000.
Me alone.
8,000 divided by 16.
How do you divide 8,000? And my father, and there are still 3 of his wives left. So how do we survive? So this is all a joke. We bring in that just to lighten the situation, but I don't want to sit here just arguing about things that work and don't work. I know this won't work. That's if you don't take the special factors of, this money is going to end up in the hands of party operatives, right? After the National Assembly is done, the topmost level, and then there will be a bureaucracy that's involved. Are you getting my point? So take it for instance, when Buhari was there was trader money, right? Apart from trader money, what is that program that the humanitarian affairs woman was organizing?
There's a trader money.
Yes.
There's a
Feeding for school children.
School
children. Exactly.
School,
so how have we fared with all these handouts? That's the question you should ask yourself. At the point the woman started feeding children electronically, people were not experts in manipulating money from Lagos. So they will give you guys shaggy.
Let me. I'll bring in Sean, and then I want to hear people. If you think that you fall within the bracket, and I'm not starting how many people that will be able to benefit from the 8,000 that are on the Twitter space, on Instagram, on YouTube.
Anybody on Twitter should not have access to that money. That means you have money to buy data now.
So people like us, we don't fit into that category. Yes. And people like Sean Nigbinde. But let's break it down. 5 million households in Nigeria, right? If I'm correct by the NBS figures, 12 million is what the federal government said is going to service 8,000 naira to these households. But you heard what the Kano government has said, saying, look, going back the distribution, Lagos is likely to get more. If you're looking at the poorest of the poor, what are the numbers telling us?
Thank you so much. And we have to be honest with it. We know that significant chunk of the poor, around 70% of the poor in Nigeria, in the northern part of the country. So out of 43 million households or 45 million households, if we move that number forward a little bit that we have, a significant chunk of that household, around 70% of poverty in Nigeria is in the north. So if you're going to say you're going to give more palliative in quotes to the poorest people, definitely you want it to be as effective. You cannot just say, I want to give this amount per state or per state. The people that really need it most should get it. But I also come back to what Shawara is saying is that, is this the right way of spending 500 billion naira? Is this the best way to do it? Because we could have committed some of those funds into, like you said, public works projects, things that could, we're incentivizing production. So naira on the social investment program. But we could ask ourselves, there's no public appraisal government appraisal of that product that is public, that we know that, okay, we've been able to transform the stories of people or in numbers. I mean, there's no adequate research document that says if this is effective or not. And that's the unfortunate part of this. We spend billions and trillions on amount, and we want to spend 500 billion on this. It's just, for me, not perfect. So I believe that the only way to go forward on all of this is the subsidy should not happen. The palliative should not happen. Government should find different ways of spending money. If it means it will have to tackle food inflation by making sure that food from markets, from farms gets to the market at a much more cheaper rate, at lower transport cost. Maybe that's what it needs to look at. If it looks that there's a challenge with farm production and there's need to support farmers to be able to do that, yes, that is what you look at. But all of that will not change if we have not harmonized the database, because when you don't have a proper harmonized database that is structured, at the end of the day, you just keep casting your seed, into the wind, and at the end of the opening, some of them will catch.
Mr. Onigmede, sorry to jump in. What platform do you think they will use in disbursing this money?
Previously, there was a platform that was already being used. There was a company called Softcom that was doing the platform that was used previously, I think, in the early days of the Buhari presidency. I think they stopped. Another platform came up on board, and there are two ways to do it. They do the digital transfer. Some are also handed in cash. We also have done some work with Tracker when we figure out that some people will be paid 20,000 naira, another person standing by the door collecting another 5,000 naira from them in some sort of way. So if we're going to distribute cash, by experience, either what we did through the flooding crisis of 2012, or either what we did with Ebola, that we did with the COVID, already showing that the people who really need the help most would not get it. That's why that we can't jump ahead of us being a proper digital system that is founded on social contract. Without us not doing that, and without us not being bold to tackle that, we just keep applying that documentation. And that's why we spend over 1.2 trillion naira on social investment programs in Nigeria. And we still end up with 133 million people in extreme poverty. So, I mean, the math is not hard enough in my own view. Platforms that they would use, because if you look at the loan itself, out of the $800 million loan, I shared the link in the chat. If you look at the link itself, close to around, because the World Bank puts their money in SDRs. So if you look at it, around $23 million. By the time we convert an SDR to so 23 million SDRs. By the time we convert that to dollars, that's around $35 million. Will be used in distributing this money. So whoever gets that, that's another thing that has to be questioned. Who gets that contract to distribute that money, or who gets that money? Who gets to be able to use those funds? It's called operating cost. So those are the things that you might look as if you are distributing money to the poor, but I can bet you some people are already positioning themselves in terms of procurement as infrastructure to do so some sort of way. And those are the situations that we find ourselves.
So you already mentioned something earlier about bankable those Nigerians and what we can find in their bank account. I assume that more of these monies are going to be transferred through their banks and through digital platforms. How many of these, the poorest of the poor, how many Nigerians are being captured in the banking system? How many of them have access to digital banking? How many of them can access banking in the rural areas, the poorest of the poor? Does it make sense?
I like us to say that, if you want to give that targeted support, see, I mean, it's for you to have a proper system. If you want to target the poor, can you hear me, Sean?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to target the poor, in the US, for example, I always make an analogy. If you say we want to give $5,000 to private primary school teachers in Washington, D.C., let's just make that analogy. $5,000, the checks will hit their mailboxes within the next 24 hours. That's because there's a proper identification system for people, what you do, what you earn, where you live. Without us not sorting out those data stacks and doing it in a way that it is functional, we cannot build a modern society. So if we cannot figure out if like you've said now, you're already even doing some elimination, which I did previously already. Who needs the palliative? Obviously, anybody within the formal sector earning this amount of threshold, that's to be defined, is not qualified for it. Obviously, if you are a federal, state, local government worker, you should not be qualified for this. Obviously, if you have had the size of turnover of amount in your bank account, because we have a BVN that can aggregate all of that, you do not qualify. That's how you build the system. So from your own end as a government, you filter out who exactly should get. And everywhere that is exactly to get you in that list, you know how much do you even have to give? But we don't even have the resources to do that size of intervention. So it's better you focus on the systemic intervention, like I mentioned, sort out minimum wage, sort out food inflation, sort out a subsidized public transport system so that people can use that. When you're able to fix that, work together with people in terms of solidarity to say, we are bearing your pains. It's not as if you're saying people should take 8,000 naira. We are allocating 70 billion to the National Assembly, 35 billion to the NJC. These organizations had budgets already in 2022. They have budget in 2023. National Assembly already planned its new lawmakers with the 2023 budget. Why are you amending the 2022 budget and say you are doing a supplementary budget for a 2020 budget that should have ended at most in June? And you are saying that you're doing a supplementary budget in 2023 July to give money to National Assembly, to give NJC money. No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So for me, it's all of this is just elite conspiracy to continuously abuse Nigeria's public trust and public resources. We're really serious about this. We will not go about this in an ad hoc. We'll go in a way that it's holistic and it's properly functional. And that's my own position about this. Thank you.
I would like to listen to, I really want to know what people are facing and how people are accepting this. And those who are on Twitter, I can see Adebisi's, she's raised her hand. If you can unmute, I'd like to get your view on, and I like to practical experience of people. Let us know how this subsidy issue has affected you and what you make of the 8,000 naira planned disbursement.
Okay, thank you so much, Sean. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Shore, and the other guest speaker. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon to everyone on the space. Quickly, I'm just going to kindly indulge me to be able to make some analysis. I'm also looking at it from the perspective of population. Nigeria is just ballooning. I think we need to have a conversation as regards population, because each time, looking at from the perspective of Showore will tell you almost everything for free. You can get everything for free. School should be free. This should be free. Nigeria used to be 73 million thereabouts, 1980. Germany used to be 76 million. Germany today is 83 million. Nigeria is 200 million today, thereabouts, and it keeps going uncontrolled, all of that, and I don't know. Yes, you can come, it doesn't really matter, but that's on that side. I want us to also have a conversation as regard population, the way it's going. How are we going to be managing our resource? Are we just going to keep watching and all of that? Then when I from that analysis, I now want you to also look at it from people should be able to find a way to be able to give birth to the number of children you think you can take care of. Showore came here and said, okay, his dad gave birth to maybe 16 children or something, or some
extraordinary. I mean, the old Showore should get a national honors.
Mm-hmm.
And then you now expect when the financial issues come up like this in Nigeria, or maybe ASU goes on strike, you want to come back and accuse the government of not taking care of your own responsibility of giving back to so much. You know what I mean now. So that I want us to also think of that from that perspective. We have a responsibility to the parents, also have the responsibility to the number that you can also control. That is one. Then coming back to the 8,000, sorry, Sean, please allow me, please. Coming back to the 8,000, I agree that this should also go quickly to the people that are really, really in need of it, not the people that sit in Lagos or Abuja or Port Harcourt. and don't really know what goes on in the Karanamuda or those far places. And so I want, because if you say you should put some of it into infrastructure, Nigeria is heavily in deficit of heavy infrastructure. That will never solve any infrastructure for now. So we need a serious tackle. Those are the key issues, because if you don't tackle smuggling, small weapons will still be coming into Nigeria. Terrorism will still be a problem in Nigeria, and all of that. So for me, I think tackling the border issue should also be a part of what Nigeria should also look at. Thank you so much, Sheung. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like some more comments that are direct to this palliative. What can it buy, for example? 8,000 naira. Does it make any impact to the poorest of the poor, or even to any Nigerians? That I can see another hand from Comrade Abiyos Roni at Abayam_Abiyos. You have the floor now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good evening to the host and everyone. What I'll say is that about this 8,000 as palliative to the poor Nigerians is that so this thing will not work. Buhari tried this before, or conditional cash transfer.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
No any palliative create the
Why they
format.
copy from me?
And this country,
Bastard stole my limits. You are a singer? A rapper. Where's the music? Can I hear it?
It seems somebody is intruding on his space. So there's someone whose audio is open.
Okay. It's like that. So this palliative cannot work to the poor Nigerians. As Buhari tried before, he said that he wants to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. This thing turned out that 133 million Nigerians are into deeper poverty, because this conditional cash transfer never reached the poor, never solved the problem. It helped no one. The people are still in poverty, in deeper poverty, are trying to deeper poverty because of the policies the government are taking.
Let me ask you quickly. In your area, I know you buy food every day. What can you buy with 8,000 naira, for example?
Okay, they said that they share 8,000 naira for 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now
it's
what
per
you
month.
get
No, it's per month.
Is that's
8,000 naira per household.
No, let me tell you. Yeah. Yes, per household, right?
For 6 months to 12 million households.
Yes, for 6. Good. So for 6 months is that you will receive like 45,000. This 45,000 cannot even buy you rice, bag of maize. This is what we use every day. Like we can use it for 2. Do you understand me? So, and this bag of maize is almost 48,000.
I know that the a poor person will not be thinking of buying a bag of rice in a month.
Bag of rice, bag of maize.
Yeah, the person will probably buy a derica or a bowl of rice. How much is a bowl of rice, for example, now? Do you have an idea?
No, I can't have an idea like that, but I know, you cannot buy rice with 8,000. That is because it cannot take you anywhere in the month. And as you said before, I heard you said that Jigawa State, in Jigawa, you see like our house now, we are almost 24. So how can 8,000 naira cover all that expensive for 24 people? You understand me?
All right.
So
let me get. I like to hear from a woman. If 8,000 naira can cook soup, I'm seeing RK at Royal K_01. You have the floor. Give us an idea. I want us to be practical and see whether or not.
Shem, why do you always assume that women cook?
I think women cook better than some men.
It's part of what you should address is that I know a lot of people on Twitter Spaces, people like Femi Adeyeye, they cook on their own.
They cook.
You should ask men. You should ask young guys, married guys.
Royal K, please go ahead. Do you cook? And what can 8,000 do for you?
She cooks meal and obedient.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Shore.
Good evening. How are you, ma'am?
And the other fine, thank you, sir. So, where I reside, what do they call? And in that,
I don't know what's happening. It seems your network needs palliative. What's going What's going wrong with you? Can you start all over again? Go ahead now.
Yes, where I plate of rice or a bowl of rice goes for between 1,200 and 1,300 naira. And in that bowl I'm referring to, you just have about 5 cups of milk cups, if you know.
Yeah.
In that bowl. So it goes for between, so imagine just that little quantity. That quantity sometimes, if you cook it for a very like a young teenager, he can virtually fit 3-4 cups at a go. So that is to show how expensive things are, currently in Nigeria. First of all, for me, this whole palliative thing is just a hoax. We know it hasn't worked in the past. All the loans, all the palliative during the coronavirus period, there were loans of over 20 billion, I think about 28 point something billion that was gotten from this. Was another 3.4 billion. That's during 2020, and there was no effect. The masses, we Nigerians there's no impact of those loans. And this particular $800 million loan is not going to be an exception, because Nigerian government has refused to deal with the funded oil sector, which is fixing up our local refineries. We are the only OPEC oil producing nation in Nigeria that is locally. Our leaders know what the issues are, but they just want us to keep on going around in circles while they keep on siphoning and stealing. We all know that this 8,000 naira we are talking about is not going to get to anybody. It's just going to go back to their pockets. The ones that they've shared amongst themselves, National Assembly getting 70 billion, Justice getting the
Okay, your network is there.
And the likes of was padded. Yeah. The 500 billion that is to be allocated to Nigeria is still going to be embezzled. Let's not just come here and deceive ourselves. But the only unfortunate thing is that we Nigerians, the taxpayers, are still going to be the ones that will end up paying for these massive loans collected by criminals in government. We are the ones that are still going to pay for it for decades.
Okay.
So let's not come here to deceive ourselves. It is ridiculous. 8,000 naira cannot do anything in Nigeria of today. The removal of has led to, apart from the unemployment rate that is in Nigeria, an already high inflation rate, it has led to even more burden on Nigerians. The cost of production, small and medium scale businesses are collapsing on a daily basis because they cannot meet up with the cost of production. They cannot be competitive. There is nothing you want to produce now. The cost of getting your materials for that production will not give you an edge locally, not to talk of internationally if you are exporting your produce.
All right.
Very clear.
Yeah.
This is very clear.
Okay, rather. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me get one or two more persons quickly, and let's get to round up with my speakers here in the studio. I know we have Regal at Honors Called Classics on Twitter. You have the floor now if you're ready. Your intervention is a quick one.
All right.
Cheryl, did you call me?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Regal. Yeah.
Hello, Cheryl.
Yeah, Regal.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Well, I want to just say a few things. What I would say about this 8,000 naira is, I will start by saying you can't do the same things over and over again and expect a different result. this social welfare scheme that the government is that is hoping will solve the problem of food shortage or try to be like a palliative. Buhari tried it for the best part of 8 years, and we know where we are at. So 8,000 naira is not really going to help us. What I think is just a way the government wants to just give back to those people that maybe went out of their way to get it into power, because they are the same stakeholders that will run this program. There are people between the supply chain that are going to run it. So if not, it's not going to make any effect. The truth is, if we keep borrowing and spending on things like this, Nigerians will keep getting poorer. And if really the idea is to pull people out of poverty, and you want to give them 8,000 every month, you are taking them deeper into poverty. That's just the result you are going to get. For me, I would say we all know how things are. Somebody called me and told me that one ball of tomato is about 100 naira now. I don't know how true that is, but he said where he lives, one ball of tomato is about 100 naira. That tells you how expensive food products are. So I'm not even going to go there. We all know that it will not suffice. The truth is, and even if we took all of this money, like the former speaker said, and try to deal with the fuel issue, Nigeria is, like she said, about OPEC. I will just say a short story about what we do as Nigeria. We have oil, which is like a hunter that goes to the farm, kills an animal, and then comes back, sells the animal for 100 naira to the woman that sells pepper soup, and then goes back and buys it 500 naira for a plate of pepper soup there. That's exactly our relationship when it comes to oil and these European countries. So we drill oil in Nigeria, we ship it out, they pay us some money, and then they refine it, and then we buy it back for twice the amount for only PMS. And if you know about hydrocarbons, you know that there are about 8 byproducts in this when you are refining petroleum. So they only sell PMS and maybe kerosene and diesel to us at twice what we sold, how much we exported it in the first place. So who is benefiting from these arrangements? It's not the Nigerian people. So you're giving the Nigerian people 8,000 naira, but somebody else is benefiting from the arrangement why our refineries are not working. That's what you need to spend. A sincere government will spend money on dealing with those things.
All right. Let me. Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me get one or two more persons. I see that Mazi Nzako. I like your interventions very quick, maybe in 30 seconds quickly, so that we can get to wrap this up and make sense of our conversation tonight.
Thank you very much. I will make it very brief. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Shawore.
Good afternoon. How are you, my brother, Mazi?
I'm your greatest opposition, but you are still a wonderful person.
I don't have opposition, you know. You're probably like a Labour Party person, a BAPC, now, you know, or PDP. All of them are the same.
These people that are giving us 8,000 naira every month, are their children spending 8,000 naira in America, in UK, in Germany?
That's it.
Are they spending 8,000 naira a day? Can they spend 8,000 naira a day and survive?
Impossible.
Why not give us 2 million? Just take 1 billion.
So how much is 8,000? You and Sean should be able to tell us. You deal with U.S. economy. How much is 8,000 naira in
that's about $10.
It's less than $10.
That's about $10.
If it's at 803 now, it's less than $10.
Their children are in the club every night spending thousands of dollars. And some people will be in Nigeria backing them up for just no reason, for peanuts.
So, are you saying that the government should not embark on distributing the money at all?
Just give us 2 million, share to all Nigerians 2 million. Take 1 billion and share 2 million to all Nigerians, whether poor, whether rich. They will still have enough money left. How many of them are in the National Assembly and they want to share 70 billion? Are we not doing? I've never seen a country like our country. We're very patient. We're the most patient country in the whole world. Where are you going to start?
Mazi, you have dropped some very important
Heavy duty.
Heavy duty message there. Let me get one or two more things quickly. At Dollar Idowu on Twitter. Quickly in 30 seconds. And I want to know how much this 2 million that Mazi is asking for, because I would love to get it if the federal government, if that is going to be the palliative the federal government is going to give. Sure, Onikmide, you give us a sense of how much that will come to.
Other live in Nigeria not for like 18 years. I want to say initially, I know you're giving me 30 seconds, that sure, you are my absolute hero. And you know that we've conversed before and all that. But 8,000 naira, the way Tinubu's government or the APC government or administration, what they are doing is mass bribery. They've done it before with trader money. We know that it failed woefully, but they're doing it again because of what? 12 million people, 8,000 naira per household or whatever that is. It's just some sort of way of making mockery of Nigeria. That's what it is. That's all it is. That's all they are doing again is the same playbook, Jim. Thank you. But I do think it's a mockery. What really pains me is the fact that you, as well, Sharon, are going to be the one to subsidize it. My inbox is always full with people saying, you know what, Dollar, just send me 10,000, send me 20,000. I'm just in a bit of a pickle now, so I can sort something out quickly. I have to do that, but I'm subsidizing their thievery. When will these guys just stop punishing Nigerians for the sake of it? Thank you, Shem.
Thank you so much, Dola. I appreciate your succinct intervention. Let me take a final one from Ren Rodrigue 1142 on Twitter.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah. Good evening.
Actually, my own is that I've never been supportive of palliative because it's just for short time, and about the 8,000 naira, that has never been my own concern. What I'm concerned about is I've been watching your program Politics Today, and I've been following up the long-term palliative. I know they have had a meeting with they set up some committee from the presidency, and what I would like, I don't know, from your program, if you can invite the NLC, let us know what they are doing regarding the plans they have. Normally, initially, they said they have 8 weeks to come up with a plan. That was the NLC and the TUC to come up with a plan on the long-term palliative that could help a lot of Nigerians. And I would like to help us question the NLC. What have they? Which position are they now on that palliative? Like for the minimum wages, we talk about the CNG buses, talk about some allowances. So let us know where they are now on that meeting with the federal government. That's what I'm more concerned about. About the 8,000 naira, I know that one is just a waste of time, and they're targeting the people in rural areas. And again, one thing I want to say again is that I think people should understand that we need to start even holding our governors responsible, because the issue of subsidy was removed since 2021. These governors knows that this thing will be ended by June. They are all aware. Some other governors, it seems like Governor of Bono, see what he has done. He created buses that is helping the people of the state. So what are the other governors do? So please, whenever they come to your program, try to question them and ask them questions. What are you guys doing? They are not just be saying federal government. Federal government will do their own, but what are the state governors doing?
All right.
What exactly are they doing?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my own position.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's bring this conversation home.
I wanted to say.
Where do we go from here?
I want to correct something.
Yeah.
Subsidy was removed in 2015 by Buhari.
Really?
That was why the price of petrol went from, I think, 97 at that time.
About 90.
Yes, and then it went to 140. They removed the subsidy since then. So how they surreptitiously brought subsidy back is a question you should ask. But I also want to list out the social interventions they had in Nigeria since Buhari came. One of it is called Empower. They have conditional cash transfer, which they still do to today. It's about 5,000 naira. They even have ID cards for collectors. They have household uplifting program. There's one they call Better Don't Come. I don't know if you heard about it before. We have trader money, farmer money, survivor fund, anchor borrowers. funds. They have some health insurance cards, and all of this in the last 8 years took $5 billion. $5 billion from Nigeria. But let me shock you. Do you know how many households is rich according to MBS? Only 6% of Nigerians benefited from it. $5 billion. If you constructed a highway with $5 billion from Lagos, it will reach Maradi. Even a train, a brand new train, will go from with $1 billion. You can get a brand new train from Lagos to Calabar.
Did the World Bank do their survey and their research to know the penetration of these funds before approving another round of these funds?
The World Bank is also a political, it's a neo-colonial political machine. That's why they don't operate in the countries of location. For example, there's no World Bank project in the U.S. Meanwhile, New Orleans is brimming with poor people. Are you getting my point? Because they are not for uplifting people. They are part of how the entire world is subjugated, especially the global south, third world countries. And to sustain them, demanding and asking for help. Yeah, you must have heard a lot from the Kenyan president recently. The Rwandan president also speaking about how they feel subjugated. And this is why the World Bank and the West, the International Monetary Fund, I call them the International Monetary Fraud, have ensured that Africans don't have real leaders who can stand up and fight for Africans. They always put puppets there, and what these puppets do is that they just give them a model for how they want to keep all this going. What I want to say finally is that what you're saying now is a continuation of what myself, Falano, Gani, Professor Barrow, Iyayi, all those student leaders in the 80s, what we were fighting against, which is called structural adjustment program. That's what we are back to now. In fact, it has never gone anywhere. It has only changed name.
What would you say the federal government should do now about it? Should they continue? Because they look like
I don't work for the federal government.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't believe we have a government.
Aren't you? Are you not a citizen of Nigeria?
I am a citizen of Nigeria, but I don't have to believe in the government that doesn't work for me.
But either you like it or not, it's impacting.
No, I don't. I cannot like a government. It's just like throughout the Buhari regime. I never believed in Buhari. And when he was leaving, the last and the only encounter I had with him when he was speaking at the Peace Committee, I sat. I was the only person in the hall who didn't stand up for him. And everybody was shouting. I was like, you didn't stand up for the president. I said, I don't believe in Buhari. And today, I've been vindicated.
So you don't believe in the Tinubu government too?
Is this they tell you they are government?
What do you mean?
Well, people are challenging them. They said they didn't win election. So an election didn't hold. So it might be an interim government, but it's not as if I'm expecting anything from the tribunal because I know how the judiciary functions. But the legitimacy of government is derived from the trust of the people. If people don't trust you, you can have all the guns in this world. You will not be a government to them. And Tinubu is proving people right. People are skeptical about.
Would you say that the palliative should be stopped?
I don't believe in palliatives. I cannot tell them to stop something they want to share amongst them. They will do what they will do regardless. We're having analysis about whether it will work or not. That's why we're here. That's why I'm not talking. It started and where it's headed.
Mathematically, economically speaking, Mr. Onigbinde, where do you think we should go from here? $500 billion, 500 billion naira, 800 million US dollar. Either way, where are we? In the middle of a hard place, in the middle of what? Where are we exactly?
I think where we are is that we cannot just afford an elaborate social program, welfare program. We can't just have it because the political class also is not ready to do the hard work around that. So we would just continue to run on this ad hoc. For example, we know how the record oil prices going on now. We've not been able to profit from that. It's in the same period of high oil prices that we are drilling one of our lowest oil production in the last 2 decades. So definitely we don't seem like a serious people. And we don't have a government that looks like they really understand what it means. All of this tokenistic, all of these ad hoc approaches will never be effective. Pushing that I advocate clearly is about you need to look at food inflation. Food is too expensive and it's within out of reach of most poor Nigerians. And that's the conversation what the government should be having. And that's to be a market-based conversation. Not the reason that we want to go and start a commodity board. There was a reason why commodity boards were abolished in the late 60s. I mean, why do we want to bring back commodity boards all over again? I mean, doing what? I mean, setting and fixing prices in this age. I mean, we have to be honest. If there are inefficiencies that make the pricing out of reach of Nigeria, we go and fix those inefficiencies as much as possible. That's my own belief. But if you look at the federal government income level, a chunk of it is going to personnel costs. Another chunk, which is rising continuously, around 4-5 trillion naira on debt servicing costs. By the time you put that together, you are on personnel costs and overhead costs. You're already around 10 trillion naira already. You have not even dug a ball. We have not even put in the capital projects at all. So, and how much is the revenue of the federal government? Less than 5% already. It just means that we're not ready. We're not fully ready. So, in my own view, subsidy has to go. But the way the government is going about the palliative or whatever support that they are doing is not the most effective way of doing things. They've taken a loan from World Bank. It's not going to be, I don't know how it will be impossible to reorder the use of that loan, because we could, with $800 million, there are better ways of us using $800 million than converting it into Naira and just distributing it into Nigerians. I don't think, because we have not built the digital infrastructure, the identity infrastructure for that, to make sure that it's holistic and it's effective. And even if we have, the size of what is being bandied around, 500 billion, is not going to be enough to change that. So if we know we don't have enough resources, let's put the money in different places. Let's put it in minimum wage. Let's put it in supporting public transport system to be cheaper. Let's put it in fighting food inflation and changing the logistics inefficiencies. Those are the kind of things I want to hear personally. Not we want to go through this old trader money, market money conversation that we have done for years. And we know that we were doing those same things and poverty was continuous and continue to entrench itself. I think I will stop at that point. Thank you.
Look, I mean, it's clear that we're going to be going into some very difficult period in the coming days. And it's going to take a lot of miracle for the Tinubu government to be able to, fix things and make things work properly. Because either way, there is a tough economic decision that this government needs to make. If you increase salaries of workers, then you need to also help the private sector, because you are increasing the salaries of the civil servants. What about the private sector? You probably have more private sector persons than government workers. What happened to the price of commodity? Even when they have more salaries, they will still go and buy more expensive food items. They will still go and take the transportation that is being run by private sector people at an expensive rate. All things considered, it's a difficult period. But Nigerians, I've heard what the president said. You voted for me. I asked for the job. Let me do the job. That's what President Tinubu has said. In the coming days, it's going to be clear to Nigerians whether President Tinubu has clear idea on how to pilot the affairs of this government from this very difficult scenario that we have found ourselves. But this is how far we can go. And I want to sincerely thank Mr. Shore and Mr. Onigmino for their intervention, and everyone that has spoken on this podcast today. Thank you so much sincerely for joining in. The president has on his hands also how to deal with Emefiele, how to deal with Bauer, and also he needs to also send the names of nominees to the National Assembly. He has just less than 2 weeks to be able to do that by law. We'll see what happens. The coming days are going to be very interesting. Thanks so much, everyone, for being part of this podcast. I'll see you next time. I'm Sean Kimbale. And thank you to Alan, my colleague, who was standing in for me earlier. Bye-bye, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Mike On Podcast with Seun Okimbaloi. Mike On Podcast for the independent mind.